You know that feeling when you're like sitting in gridlock traffic or maybe you're just staring at the exact same spreadsheet you've been updating for, I don't know, 3 years.
Oh, yeah. The endless spreadsheet.
And you just get this sudden overwhelming sense of being entirely boxed in. Like you look out the window of your apartment,
Mm,
you look at the city skyline, and this really quiet thought creeps in. You're like, is this it?
right. Are these the absolute limits of my reality?
Exactly.
It is a universal and honestly profoundly uncomfortable feeling.
Oh, totally.
And typically, our response to that creeping claustrophobia is pretty mundane.
Yeah.
We tell ourselves we just need a vacation or
Or I just need to update my resume, get a new job, change the scenery.
exactly. But the material we are diving into today takes that mild everyday sense of confinement and pushes it to an absolute staggering philosophical extreme.
And that is exactly what we are going to do today. We're doing a deep dive into an essay titled, Why Strive to Become a Celestial Being?
That's quite the title.
Right. It was written by a philosopher named Sweffing, and the version we're looking at today is an English translation edited by Kinyu, and it was published late in 2024.
Yeah.
And what makes this text so gripping isn't just the wild title, it's the sheer velocity of the argument.
The pacing is incredible.
It really is. I mean, the author starts with a concept that we can all instantly relate to, right? The idea of moving to a new city to unlock your potential.
Simple enough.
But before you can even catch your breath, the logic just accelerates. We are suddenly talking about how the concept of nationality is a literal death trap, and how the planet Earth itself is a prison we have to escape.
It is an existential roller coaster, without a doubt. I mean, it forces you to completely dismantle your conventional understanding of success, boundaries, and what it actually means to survive.
Yes, survive. Not just succeed, but survive.
Right. And our mission today is to really map out the underlying mechanics of this argument. We aren't just going to look at what Zhu Feng is saying, but why this escalation actually makes logical sense within the framework of his essay.
We want to understand how a simple desire for a better career eventually morphs into like a mandate to transcend human biology.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this because the foundation of this entire philosophy starts with a very visceral, very biological image.
Yeah, the cocoon.
Right. Shufeng asks us to picture a worm developing inside its cocoon. Now, initially, that cocoon is necessary, it's a shelter.
It keeps it safe.
Exactly. But there comes a critical moment where that shelter turns into a constraint. If the worm doesn't actively struggle against the walls of that cocoon and break out, it doesn't just fail to become a butterfly.
Right. It doesn't just stay a worm.
No, the environment literally suffocates it. The confinement becomes lethal.
What's fascinating here is how the author uses that biological imperative as a blueprint for the human experience. The cocoon is this mechanism of temporary incubation that, well, it turns deadly if it isn't ruptured. And Suking scales this up to our immediate environments. The argument is that our hometowns, our native cultures, or the countries we are born into, they operate on that exact same mechanism.
They incubate us for a while.
Right, they incubate us, but eventually they will quietly extinguish our potential if we don't break past their borders.
And to really ground this idea, the text gives us this rapid-fire list of historical heavyweights who proved this exact point.
Oh, it's quite a list.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about Elon Musk leaving South Africa, Albert Einstein leaving Germany, Sergey Brin leaving the Soviet Union.
Right, and Enrico Fermi leaving Italy.
Madeleine Albright leaving Czechoslovakia, and Arnold Schwarzenegger leaving Austria.
Yeah, it's a very clear pattern.
It really is. And now, we all know the biographies, right? These individuals moved to the United States and became absolute titans in technology, physics, diplomacy, and entertainment.
Absolutely.
But looking at the cocoon analogy, it makes me think about human potential like a potted plant.
Ooh, I like that. How so?
Well, you can have the most resilient seed and the best water and sunlight. But if a plant outgrows its pot, the roots hit the ceramic and they have literally nowhere to go.
They get root bound.
Exactly. They start circling back on themselves, choking the plant from the inside. The very soil that nurtured it becomes the thing that kills it.
That's a perfect way to put it.
It must be repotted into a larger environment to bloom. So I have to ask, is Yufeng just giving us a highly dramatic version of career advice here, or is there a deeper mechanical truth about how geography limits us?
It is definitely the latter. The author is making a structural argument about the physics of human potential. Think about the infrastructure required for Einstein to safely develop and publish his theories,
Right.
or for Brin to scale a concept like Google into a global utility.
Yeah, you need the right environment.
Exactly. Those things literally could not manifest in their original environments due to severe political, economic, or academic constraints.
They were in pots that were way too small.
Exactly. The original environment wasn't just, less than ideal. It fundamentally lacked the raw materials and the oxygen for their specific potential to metabolize.
Wow.
Xu Feng is arguing that remaining in the original pot isn't just a missed opportunity, it is a fundamental failure to thrive. If you do not cross that geographical boundary, your potential dies in the dark.
So you have to shatter the pot, you have to break the cocoon to survive.
You do.
It's an intense way to look at relocation, but it tracks logically with what we know about high achievers. But, and this is a big but, this is exactly where the essay stops holding your hand and takes a massive, almost dizzying pivot.
It really does.
Because if geographical boundaries can stifle your career, the logical next question is what happens when those boundaries dictate your actual physical survival?
The stakes get much higher.
Yeah. We go from talking about Silicon Valley billionaires and Nobel laureates to looking at some of the most complex, tragic geopolitical events of the last century.
The shift in scale is dramatic, but it's necessary to test the limits of the author's logic. So Xu Feng brings up the 1980 Mariel boat lift.
Right. And just to pause here for a second, I want to make sure we're really clear with you, the listener. The sources we're discussing touch on some incredibly charged political topics here, both with Cuba and later with Russia and Ukraine.
Yes, absolutely.
We are not taking any political sides here. We're not endorsing or criticizing the left-wing or right-wing views of these events. We are strictly impartially reporting on how Xu Feng uses these examples to build the philosophical argument in the essay.
That's a really crucial impartiality note. We are just looking at the mechanics of the essay.
Exactly. Okay, so back to the Mariel boat lift.
Right. So looking at this strictly through the mechanical lens of the essay, bypassing all the intense political debates surrounding the event, the author focuses on the outcome.
Okay.
Cuban President Fidel Castro released around 150,000 people, specifically noting prisoners and psychiatric patients, into Miami. The intent was to overwhelm the United States. But Xu Feng points out the irony here. Not only did this massive influx actually contribute to Miami's long-term prosperity, but more importantly, crossing that boundary fundamentally altered the fate of those 150,000 individuals.
Because they got out of the cocoon.
Yes. The essay argues that had they remained in their original environment in Cuba, their trajectories would have been incredibly grim. Breaking the border was a literal mechanism of survival.
Right. And then the author applies this exact same mechanical lens to the Russia-Ukraine war, pointing to the hundreds of thousands of Russian soldiers who have become casualties on the battlefield.
Yeah.
And Xu Feng makes this blunt, almost shocking assertion. He says that if the geopolitical concept of Russia simply did not exist, or if those specific soldiers were not bound by the invisible contract of Russian citizenship, that massive personal tragedy would not have unfolded for them.
It is a deliberate deconstruction of the macro constructs we live inside. And again, to be clear, the text isn't weighing in on the morality of the conflict or taking a political side.
Right. It's just looking at the structure.
Exactly. It's rigorously isolating the concept of nationality as a variable. The author is stripping away all the patriotism, the history, the emotion we attach to our countries, and asking us to look at the border purely as a structural cage.
But I have to push back on this because it feels like a massive leap, right?
It is a big leap.
It's one thing to say Arnold Schwarzenegger needed the infrastructure of Hollywood to become a global movie star. That makes total sense.
Sure.
But it's an entirely different universe to look at 200,000 casualties in a brutal war and say, well, they're just victims of their geographical confinement.
I see what you mean.
Isn't that reducing incredibly complex, deeply painful historical conflicts into a bizarrely simple self-help framework? Like, how does the text justify making nationality itself the villain?
It justifies it by raising the stakes from thriving to surviving. The author is demanding that you recognize nationality for what it is at its absolute baseline, an arbitrary boundary.
An arbitrary boundary.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. From a purely existential standpoint, borders are invisible lines drawn by historical accidents. Yet we treat them as absolute, inescapable reality.
We do. We totally do.
And Xu Feng is arguing that when you allow an invisible line of citizenship you were just randomly born into to dictate whether you live or die, whether you're deployed to a frozen trench or trapped in an economic collapse, you are fundamentally a prisoner.
Wow.
The shift from career success to battlefield casualties is meant to shock the reader into realizing how dangerous these constructs really are.
Okay, I see the through line now. It's this progression of invisible walls. The hometown limits your potential, but the nation-state can literally end your life.
Exactly.
Which brings us to the next massive realization in the text. Because if a hometown is a trap and a national border is a trap, then the author has to formally define what a trap actually is.
And the essay delivers an absolute, uncompromising rule.
It really does. It states, and I quote, "Whatever confines you is a prison, no matter its form."
It's a ruthlessly simple definition. If there is a limit you cannot cross, if there's a perimeter dictating your reality, you are incarcerated by it.
Period.
Period. And once Wei Feng sets that parameter, the essay strips the complexity of human existence down to a brutal multiple-choice question.
Oh, yeah. This part is intense.
According to the author, you only have 3 choices in life. Choice 1, escape the prison.
Okay.
Choice 2, endure suffering while waiting for your sentence to end. Or choice 3, die within the prison walls.
Notice there is no choice 4, where you just buy a nice house, retire comfortably, and everything is totally fine.
Nope. Doesn't exist in this framework.
Here's where it gets really interesting, especially for you listening right now. Because my immediate reaction to choice 2, enduring suffering while waiting for the sentence to end, was total denial.
Oh, of course.
I thought, well, my life doesn't feel like suffering. I have a comfortable routine. I like my job. I go out to dinner.
You're doing well in the pot.
Right. But the author is 10 steps ahead of us. Xu Feng argues that worldly success is the ultimate illusion. It's just how we cope with being trapped.
Yes.
The text explicitly points out that even an emperor, a president, or a billionaire is still fundamentally a prisoner. The only difference is whether you're a high-ranking prisoner, a famous prisoner, or an unknown prisoner.
That's a chilling thought.
It begs the question, are we all just spending our limited time on Earth interior decorating ourselves?
If we connect this to the bigger picture of human psychology, you can see the profound existential dread driving this entire philosophy.
Oh, absolutely.
Because human beings are incredibly adaptable. When we are faced with an insurmountable wall, our primary coping mechanism is to try and make the wall look pretty.
Right, hang a nice painting on it.
Exactly. We build intricate social hierarchies. We chase corporate titles. We accumulate wealth. We seek validation on the internet. We convince ourselves that upgrading from a small gray cell to a massive gold-plated cell is the definition of a well-lived life.
But it's still a cell.
Right. But Xu Feng's logic cuts right through that illusion.
Yeah.
If you haven't escaped the fundamental confinement, all those achievements are completely hollow. They will dissipate like smoke the moment your biological sentence ends.
It's the ultimate golden handcuffs scenario. It's
Yeah.
it's like you're living on this incredibly luxurious cruise ship.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
The buffet is world-class, the entertainment is fantastic, the sheets have 1,000 thread count, but you are absolutely forbidden from ever stepping foot on dry land.
You can't leave.
Ever. For a while, the luxury distracts you, right? But eventually the realization hits you that you are just floating in a void, waiting for the ship to inevitably sink.
That is a terrifying metaphor.
But it fits perfectly. The suffering the author talks about isn't necessarily physical torture. It's that quiet, gnawing emptiness. It's the latent awareness that your entire life, your impressive resume, your bank account, was just an elaborate distraction from the fact that you never truly broke free.
Precisely. The suffering is the slow realization of your own limitation. According to the mechanics of this essay, if you invest your energy into anything other than breaking the boundary, you're actively choosing option 2 or option 3.
You're enduring the illusion or you're dying.
Yes, you're choosing to endure the illusion or you're choosing to quietly die within the walls.
So what does this all mean for our ultimate trajectory? Because if we follow this logic completely, if every confining environment is a prison, and if decorating the cell with money and status is pointless, where is the final wall?
That is the ultimate question.
Right. We can outgrow our hometowns. We can realize that our nationalities are just invisible lines drawn by history. But eventually you run out of geography. Where does the escape end?
It ends exactly where it has to, in the metaphysical.
Okay.
You run out of geography, so you have to confront the hardware of your existence. The essay reveals its final, most extreme conclusion by identifying the 2 absolute ultimate prisons that hold every single human being captive.
And they aren't political constructs.
No. The 2 greatest prisons are the physical body and the planet Earth itself.
The body and the earth. The cocoon isn't just your hometown anymore. It's your literal skin. It's gravity.
It's a huge leap, but it works.
It makes total sense within the escalating framework of the argument. If a boundary is a prison, then the fact that my consciousness is trapped inside a decaying biological vessel bolted to a specific rock floating in a cold universe is the ultimate confinement.
Exactly.
And this brings us to the author's final solution, which is the title of the essay itself. The only valid pursuit in a lifetime, the only way to avoid dying as a prisoner, is to strive to become a celestial being.
It is the only rational conclusion left on the board. You cannot stop at escaping a political border. To achieve true freedom, you have to escape the very fabric of your physical and planetary limitation.
But I need to ask, on behalf of everyone trying to wrap their heads around this, how do we actually do that?
That's a fair question.
Because the text is highly philosophical. It doesn't give us the schematic. It doesn't say, step 1, secure funding for a rocket. Step 2, upload your brain to a server.
Right, there's no manual.
When de Seffing says we must strive to become a celestial being, what is the actual mechanism? Are we talking about literal astrophysics, like the push to make humanity multiplanetary so we aren't confined to Earth?
Maybe.
Is it a profound spiritual enlightenment, like breaking the cycle of rebirth? Or is it some transhumanist technological leap where we merge with machines to escape biological decay?
This raises an important question about the utility of Seffing's philosophy. The essay doesn't specify the exact methodology, and structurally it doesn't need to.
It doesn't.
No, because the author has deliberately marched the reader from the physical to the geopolitical and finally to the metaphysical. A celestial being, in this context, is a state of existence entirely unburdened by Earth's gravity and human mortality.
Okay, so it's more about the state itself.
Exactly. The exact method you use to pursue it, whether it's through radical technological innovation, deep spiritual awakening, or astrophysics, matters less than the orientation of your life.
The orientation, I like.
The core instruction is the absolute refusal to accept the finality of the physical world.
And here is the catch, which I found surprisingly grounding. The author openly admits that striving for this ultimate escape does not guarantee you will succeed.
Yes, that's a very important nuance.
You might spend your entire life trying to transcend your biological limits, trying to break out of the ultimate cocoon, and you might still fail. You might still hit the wall.
Yes, but that admission is tied to a vital pragmatic wager.
Like Pascal's wager, but for escaping Earth.
Exactly. Xu Yifeng argues that striving against the ultimate boundary offers one tangible thing, and that is hope.
Hope?
If you actively fight against the limits of your biology and your planet, there is a non-zero chance of transcendence. You are in motion. But if you passively accept that your decaying body and this single planet are the absolute unbreakable limits of your reality, then despair is inevitable.
Because the final destination of passive acceptance is simply death.
It's a binary outcome.
Passivity guarantees the third option, dying inside the prison. Striving to become a celestial being, even if it feels absurd, even if the odds are astronomical, is the only way to activate option 1.
It's the only way out.
It's the only thing that transforms you from a complacent prisoner waiting out the clock into an active agent attempting a cosmic prison break.
It completely destabilizes how we view our daily lives.
Okay.
And it demands that we look at our comfort zones, our routines, and even the physical ground beneath our feet, not as achievements to be protected, but as perimeters that we haven't dared to cross yet.
It really is a staggering trajectory.
Yeah.
Just to trace the arc of what we've explored today, we started by looking at a worm suffocating in a tiny cocoon. We watched historical figures shatter their geographical limits to metabolize their potential. We waded into the heavy structural mechanics of geopolitics, looking at the Mariel boat lift and the Russia-Ukraine war, to understand how invisible borders can function as literal death traps.
We covered a lot of ground.
And then we pushed past the atmosphere itself, confronting the idea that our own flesh and the gravity of Earth are the final walls we have to tear down.
It forces a total reevaluation of the human experience.
Yeah.
Once you recognize the walls that surround you, decorating them is no longer an acceptable excuse for staying inside.
Which brings us right back to you listening to this right now. We want you to take a hard, honest look at your life today.
What's your cocoon?
Exactly. What is the invisible cocoon that is currently wrapped around you? Is it a career path that you've fundamentally outgrown? Is it a worldview? Is it the very city you're sitting in?
Right.
And based on Xu Yifeng's uncompromising logic, are you actively strategizing an escape, or are you just pouring all your time and energy into becoming a really famous, really comfortable prisoner inside those walls?
It's a question that requires rigorous self-reflection.
And as we wrap up, we want to leave you with one final thought. a paradox to mull over that pushes this whole concept even further.
Let's hear it.
Let's say you do it. Let's say you follow Schwiffing's logic to its absolute infinite limit. You abandon your hometown, you completely shed your nationality, you leave the planet Earth behind, and you somehow transcend your physical body.
Okay, you made it out.
You become the ultimate, boundless celestial being. Here is the question. What exactly is left of you to experience that ultimate freedom?
Wow.
Right. If human identity is forged by the friction of our boundaries, by the cultures we push against, the physical sensations we feel, the places we call home, and you escape every single one of those boundaries, does escaping everything mean you become everything? Or does it mean you become nothing?
That is a lot to think about.
Think about it. We will see you on the next deep dive.